When you were little, did any of the grown-ups in your life tell you that you better fix your face?
I still have grown-ups telling me I better fix my face. I'm very demonstrative in my facial expression. And typically it's not what I'm thinking. I also have an astigmatism, so I'm always scrunching my face. So everybody's telling me to fix my face. What about you?
So when I was little, I was a very emotive child. So the smallest thing would set me into tears. So I was always being told that I better fix my face or else I'm going to get something to cry for.
That one, you gonna get something to cry about.
Yes.
That is a lot. And that is really confusing to a child, adolescent. I think that's still confusing to me because if I had something to cry, I'm crying because I do have something to cry about. Like, I don't need another reason. Wow. Yeah. So what are we talking about today with all of this?
So we are really talking about, performance. And oftentimes we perform emotions and we perform wellness.
So my name is Summer Esquerre. I am an ICF-certified somatic leadership coach and a former corporate executive.
And I'm Dr. Reba Peoples, board-certified psychiatrist, functional medicine practitioner, and emotional wellness strategist.
And together we've created Smart Wellness to help gifted, high-achieving Black professionals stop surviving success and to start living it from a place of alignment, rest, and self-trust.
This podcast blends neuroscience, somatic healing, and cultural wisdom to offer real embodied wellness, not just wellness that looks good on paper.
And we're talking about the things not only that we know as practitioners and as professionals, but as people who are living it. So we're not talking about anything beyond like anything esoteric or academic. We're really talking about lived experience, and we're meeting you where you are at in your lived experience, not from a place of judgment or shoulds or what you're supposed to do, but really where you're at to help you with some tools, practices, and ways of being to improve your quality of life.
And a quick note before we dive in. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for medical advice. Please be sure to consult with your own physician or wellness practitioner regarding your individual health needs.
So we're talking about being performative and dare I say like performing self-care and performing wellness. Is that part of what we're getting into today?
I would agree with that, yes.
So what does that look like? What is performing wellness? I know what I think about when I see somebody who I think is like being performative with self-care. But what does that look like to you?
Well, I think sometimes we can confuse surface level interventions with wellness. So there are ways that we can take care of ourselves. So, things like bubble baths or, getting a massage, those are really wonderful self-care strategies. But when we are thinking about true wellness, it's really about a lifestyle. So how do we create a lifestyle that centers our well-being rather than, one-off things that make us feel good in the moment, but don't necessarily promote longer-term well-being?
So you mean to tell me when I would post those Instagram pictures with my feet up at the beach talking about self-care, that was perhaps a little performative? Are you trying to call me in or out?
Not necessarily. If putting your feet up on the beach feels good to you, then that is a wellness strategy that works for you.
So if we're talking about strategy, though, strategy to me means like a whole overall plan, holistic, thinking about it even spherically, right? 360. What is a wellness strategy and what are some of the tactical components in it and what is not wellness?
Mm-hmm. So at least when we think about strategy, that is the overall lifestyle, because ultimately we want to build a life that we don't need a vacation from. So thinking about, how do you scaffold wellness as a day-to-day part of your practice? And the Smart Wellness Framework is a great way to think about, how do you strategize a life that supports well-being? So really thinking about sleep, thinking about how are we physically moving our bodies? What sort of awareness practice do we have? Do we know who we are? And really thinking about, tailoring those inputs. So, how are we feeding ourselves, not only, nutritionally, but, the people that we surround ourselves with, the, music that we consume, the social media. So all of those things are really important when we're thinking about that overall strategy.
So it sounds like it's activities and action. It sounds like it's people. But if we go back to this, you better fix your face. One of the things that we were what was being communicated to us is that we could not emote, right? And we could not demonstrate or express emotion. Would you say that crying or displaying maybe negative types of emotions, is that part of a wellness plan? Is that part of a wellness strategy for someone?
It definitely can be. So we actually, when we're crying, we're kind of detoxifying. So we're releasing things when we're crying. So sometimes we're taught that it's not okay to cry, that it's not okay to experience emotions. And the challenge with that, when that message is given very early in life, is it kind of shapes our attachment. So it shapes how we interact and engage with other people. So, children who are taught that, me as the adult, I can't handle your big overwhelming emotions. The child learns that they have to manage their emotions themselves. So that's a setup for what we call an avoidant attachment style. So that very self-contained person who really has a hard time emotionally connecting in a real, authentic, intimate way with other people.
Yeah, that is something that I know in my life's journey I've struggled with. So when I was little, I used to say, I'm sad inside, right? And when I would cry, I had family members who would like literally panic in front of me, trying to get me to stop crying, right? And so I'm getting the message that it's not healthy, it's not safe to cry. And throughout my life, I struggled with that. I remember watching this cartoon, it was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and there's a scene played by Mr. T. He was a cop, and the cop starts crying, and he like literally like sucks up the tears. It's a cartoon, so they can show that. He like literally like sucks up the tears. And I remember my daughter saying, "That's what you do." And that was really telling, because not only was I not practicing my own self-care, but what I was telegraphing to her was to not do it as well. So that's really, I think that's really important. And I appreciate you sharing that, self-care and really embodied strategic wellness includes a lot of different things. It's not only going to go get a massage. It's not only going to the beach or, taking the pictures, Instagram as you were running or working out at the gym. Like, it's really a whole body, whole concept to look at everything. So let me ask about another emotion that is a sensitive one, particularly for Black women, and that's anger. Is there a place for anger in self-care and for really embodied strategic wellness?
Definitely. I mean, there is a saying that depression is anger turned inward. So when we aren't able to really express or even recognize our anger, that can have a negative consequence long term. So, I mean, there is a difference between anger that is kind of directionless. So we do want to make sure that when we are in a place of kind of righteous indignation, we're responding rather than reacting. So, reactive anger is anger that is from that sort of primitive limbic part of the brain. So your frontal lobes really shut down, and you're really operating in survival mode. So those are the people who are, I'm going to yell and scream, and I'm going to dominate, and I'm going to, do whatever necessary to get my way. Whereas when we are in that place of righteous indignation, the frontal lobes are in control. So we are able to really plan and strategize and really work toward a resolution that is going to work to our benefits.
But that's hard as
It's hard.
somebody who has a very intimate relationship with anger and has been called an angry Black woman. That's hard of when we're supposed to do that, because when the anger comes just like the tears. So how do we even get to a place of like strategy for righteous indignation? Like, how do we get to that?
And I think part of it is really working on this sort of concept of the window of tolerance. So kind of when we're operating within that window, we can kind of handle what life throws at us. But if things, keep happening, that window can get more and more narrow. So things that used to roll off our backs when the window was wide might feel insurmountable during times when that window is narrow. So when we do think about mindfulness practices, when we think about, sleep, when we think about the food that we eat, you'll notice there are some times where we're more likely to fly off the handle when that window is narrow, when we haven't been taking care of ourselves, when we haven't been doing all of those things that really help with sort of widening that window, versus, when we've slept well, when we're in a good place emotionally, things can kind of roll off our backs and we're able to really be with other people's big emotions without those big emotions hijacking our own.
Yeah. So let's get real here, because we're in a society, right, that really doesn't help us prioritize our self-care, our societal care, like our community care. We also are in a society where it's like our wellness is not valued. There's not permission to do it, right? And so a lot of us, it sounds as we're talking like this is an individual effort. How do we go about this when most of the systems that we're in are designed for our downfall?
Mm-hmm. And you're right. We are operating in a capitalist society, and the goal is to extract as much labor possible. And within that system, humanity isn't necessarily valued or recognized or even tolerated. So really getting to a place where we are able to recognize our own value and our own humanity, and sometimes that does have to happen in community. So having other people to pour into you, having community, having people that love and care and support you is important. So, healing isn't an individual act. It's really this collective endeavor. So really taking advantage of community, I think, is one of the key things that is so important, especially when we do function in a society that rewards, rugged individualism. And you can almost think of it like a battered woman. So when you're in these relationships that are trying to convince you of your inferiority, one of the things that the abuser does is isolates you from your family, isolates you from your friends, isolates you from your community. So really making sure that you are moving through this together rather than trying to shoulder it alone.
So, do you have any recommendations on doing it with community from your perspective of helping folks who historically and traditionally are the ones that are leaned on, right? So, if I am now somebody who really wants to strategically work on my self-care, my community care, my wellness, what is maybe one thing that we can start to practice to help with that?
It can be something as simple as, joining a walking group, and, being in community with other people who are wanting to get out and move their bodies. It could be, going to a fitness class. It could be joining a community organization. So really finding something that speaks to you, so that you are able to have at least some pockets of community and not being alone.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we can do as a somatic practice and this might feel like it's not a somatic practice, but as long as you're in your body, it is taking for the next 6 weeks, really focus time with someone that you care about. Whether it is a phone call, a video call, preferably face to face, spending some time and letting these folks know in advance, hey, like, I miss you. You'd be like, well, is this self-care? Yes, this is self-care. I miss you, and I want to have a chance for us to connect. Because one of the ways of self and community care is being in relationship with another human being. So having that time, you could talk about anything or everything. I would stay away from politics. I would stay away from what's going on right now because we're not trying to raise anyone's pressure. But you could even look online of different questions to ask somebody during a road trip, right? And maybe just taking 5 of those questions, and it can just start to bring up all types of things. But the storytelling and the communication really helps with the healing. And that is part of a strategic self-care program, right? It's low cost, no cost. And you get to do it in community, and you get to do it in partnership with another person. Again, this is something that you could let them know, I'm in a practice. And at first they might make fun of you. They might be like, what you trying to do? If it's that person, maybe that's not the first phone call. Maybe it's the second or third, but really letting them know what is important is your care. And this person is part of your care community. So do it for 5 weeks. Again, notice what you see, write it down, jot it down. If writing is not something that you enjoy doing, use the voice note on your phone, talk to yourself. It is okay. The most important thing, though, is to be present and to notice what is going on and to be in curious, non-perfect practice. Let us know in the comments what you think about the activity. Let us know what you notice in the comments, and you can reach us at www.smartwellnessglobal.com. So this episode is coming to an end, and I'm actually really sad because this, I feel like, is part of my self-care, talking to someone that I really respect and admire, who is thoughtful. We've shared some stories, we've shared some things. Like, I feel like this simple act is part of like my self-care practice. What would you say?
Thank you for sharing that. I would be in agreement with that. So for me, it is important to be in community with like-minded people, and it's also important to be creative. So that is one of my ways that I practice self-care. And creating this podcast together with you definitely fills that creative need.
Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome. That's fantastic. If there's someone else in your community that would value and support this episode, please share it with them. You could even share this episode with folks that you're going to start doing the practice with so that they can see where it's coming from and they have a chance to think about and experience and feel what we're discussing. If there's any questions, comments that you'd like to provide us, please don't hesitate to do so. If there's a saying from your background that you want us to break down from a smart wellness perspective, also put that in the comments. We appreciate the time that you've spent with us today because you could have been watching or listening to anything and you just spent the last 20 some odd minutes spending some time with us. So we really, really value you. If you're curious about other things going on with Smart Wellness, please go again to smartwellnessglobal.com. There you'll see information about our master classes, retreats, intensives, and there's an opportunity to work one-on-one with either Dr. Reba or myself. So thank you for your time today. Continue to be well, continue to be smart. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.